my name is Marc Adler. I'm the Managing Director of the Kogler Rhine-Alpine, and since 2 days I took over the rotating chair for the RFC Network from Gerhard Troche. So I'm today your moderator, and I'm happy to announce that we have 4 very interesting topics today. First of all, I want to give you some introduction how the meeting will take place. I think most of the things I will tell you is not new after 2 years of digital working, but I will repeat it again that we have a nice and smooth meeting. You don't need to make any screenshots because we share everything afterwards. If you want, I want to inform you that we will record this meeting and we'll publish it on our RFC Network YouTube channel. This is why it would be nice, everyone, if from you, please mute your micro and disable your video when you're not speaking. After each topic, the moderator will address the open questions, so you don't have to raise your hands during the presentation. Afterwards, after every presentation, we have a Q&A session. If you want to say something, please raise your digital hand and I will give you the floor, and then please turn on your mic and also the video that we can see you and can hear you and can answer your questions. Afterwards, please turn the micro again off and the video as well. If there is not enough time for every comment, please post it in the chat and we will try to answer it afterwards, and we will address them afterwards and we'll send it or to all of you in our FAQs. That's just for a short introduction. I don't think that we have any question on this, and then we will shortly go to the agenda that I can show you what we have today. The first point we have Harald Reisinger and Vojkan Stefanović from RNE will say something about the RNE digital roadmap and digital rail infrastructure information system. I think this is a very important topic, especially that we need a huge leverage and utilization to improve our challenges or to face our challenges. The next one is Miloslav Kogler as well as from RNE, and he will say something about CIP, the Customer Information Platform, and they are especially about information, a one-stop shop of the entire RFC network. And the last program is also the starting of a series of information about the rail facilities portal and the network corridor information. We will also face this topic in the next meeting. And this will be presented from Marc Hillenberg and Michael Spannlang from RNE as well. So I don't want to waste any time. So I give the floor to Harald and Vojkan. They can start with the first point, and please enjoy this meeting. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much. Also from my side, Harald Reisinger speaking, and I'm doing this presentation together with Vojkan Stefanović. Who is the chair of the presentation, or shall I share this presentation on myself just to keep me?
Yes, if you can share it, Harald, otherwise you will have to say next slide, and we want to avoid that.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. So I'm opening the presentation. And I will start my screen sharing. Vojkan, are you then taking over, or shall I also do the sharing for you as well?
I can take over, so we avoid in the next slide, then please.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. What we would like to give you is an information about, for our point of view, really quite important project. This is the Digital Rail Infrastructure Information System. Will be renamed shortly in the Rail Infrastructure System to be a bit more in the RNE, let's say, nomenclature. And we would like to show you also how this is included into the overall picture. So I will do more or less the overall picture and also how it was the history, and then Vojkan will give you the details. We started with this project a couple of years ago, and we just started with one quite easy idea. We said, please, we would like to use the same reference information, points, location in all our applications we're having inside of RNE. And you see here the customer information platform, TCR, TIS, and so on. And it has taken a while, but we have removed this kind of reference files for location and segments out of the single application. So we're just making a reference, a synchronization anymore. But they are kept all in the Geo editor in big data, and which is more or less fed by the tough TSI common components with the primary location points, and also with the segments information from the infrastructure manager. So we achieved that we're having the same, let's say, topology in the application. So if you're doing now any increasement of the quality in the topology, like we're having polio lines in, like we having distance information in, more granularity, that's avoided and can be used in all the other applications. That was the first step. So this is something we achieved, I think, until the end of 2020, mid of 2021. And then we said, okay, now we would like to go to the next step. I just show you the high level overview, and then we can come much more into the detail. I'll say we would like to include in the next steps in our IT strategy the information in, let's say, the geo editor, but adding also in the future wind topology in, so that we can have them in here. We would like them, but coming to that later, also merge functionalities like from the rail facility portal, CIP, and the common components into this system, which will be then explained very much by Vojkan. And what is the reason for that? It's not because we are funny and we love IT and we love digitalization. Yes, we like digitalization, but there's a big purpose behind. The purpose is as following. We would like to establish in Europe, very much from the IAM point of view, we call it ground topology. There we have the information of the facility portal in, of the customer information platform, of the TAF and TAP CSI, and we would investigate at the moment, the digitalization of the network statement and wind. This is the potential and next step in. And if we're having this ground topology, so we're having all over Europe a view of the infrastructure, then we are going to use this for business purpose. Capacity supply, European capacity modeling tool, managing tool. So this is something we have to update here. So based on that, we're building the capacity. And there we know the systems, we have the capacity program, we have TCR system in, and based on that, the defined, let's say, capacity based on topology, we are going to now to the capacity broker PCS for the different phases of the path request. So, you know, we're having also for the corridors, we have the PAP, which would be in the annual path request, but we would like to, with TTR, widen this to late path request, volume planning, short-term ad hoc, and so on and so on. But still using the same topology, the same project, Vojkan will explain you just in a couple of minutes. And finally, we would like to let the train run. So there we would like to have the same topology if you're getting the train running information, the ETA information, the daily timetable in the train information system, where we have also projects like the Digital Train 2.0 TIS, and comparing train running information with distance information, and also connecting this in the sense with train composition messages, ETA messages, and so on and so on and so on. This is now a bit the vision. And how we would like to come to the vision, I would like to ask Vojkan to take over the screen. This is where we are in the digital railway infrastructure information system. And this will be presented by Vojkan. Vojkan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Harald. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like now to start with the explanation. What is our goal and what is the strategy? Of course, I would try to keep the presentation as less technical as possible, but please feel free to interrupt me if you need any additional explanation, or if you need any additional, let's say, clarification, especially when it comes to the acronyms and certain terminology. If you're not familiar, I would expect that you can, of course, you will interrupt me and I will be very glad to explain everything to you. So as Harald explained, we basically have our vision, and the goal is to unify the complete digital space, so to say, for the railway, and to be able to complete the full cycle from the planning until the train run. And in order to be able to do that, and for the systems to be able to operate smoothly and without, of course, loss of any information, in order to be able to provide a proper reporting and to extract the data that would be interesting for the business in the first place, we need to establish something that Harald called the ground topology. But establishing a ground topology is not a simple task, because as Harald explained, there are several different sources of a topology that and different bodies and different groups of users that actually provide a different overview of the topology. topology in general. And for that reason, the idea that was that we came to and that we try to realize now is something that would be the natural evolution of the existing big data framework that we have in RNE. So the idea is to merge basically the systems that we currently have, and they are aforementioned, such as CAP, such as CCS, such as GeoEditor, Rail Facilities Portal, into one single system that will serve as this ground topology system, and that the system that will provide a very detailed and exhaustive description of the railway network in a digital format that can be offered and that can be used by other systems that fulfill other business processes, of course, starting from planning until basically the train run. So here you can see on this slide just a few goals, or what was the motivation for doing that and for building that system. So on the first place, we would like to simplify things, to streamline the things. By simplification, I don't mean that we will actually strive for losing any functionalities or any data, but a better term would be streamlining. We currently operate 4 individual systems at RNE, and all 4 of them represent the railway network infrastructure in a digital format in different ways. So we have the Central Reference Files Database, or CRD, which is part of the Common Component Systems, and that is the Central Reference Files Database legally regulated within the TAF and TAP TSI. As you might know, TAF and TAP TSI are the standards that support the better harmonization and interoperability between various actors in the railway business, mostly between the IMs and RUs. On the other side, we have RNE's internal tool called GeoEditor, and that is the tool currently that contains all railway infrastructure data that our systems, the sector systems, more better to say, are using. And it also contains something that is very unique in the digital space of European railway digital space. That's the digital description of the corridors. Of course, the GeoEditor is tightly coupled with CAP, Customer Information Platform, that actually presents and serves as a portal for the description of the rail freight corridors. And finally, the latest system that was onboarded in RNE's ecosystem, IT ecosystem, was the Rail Facilities Portal that contains the data about all the service facilities for the railway in Europe and Europe-wide. So basically, we have 4 systems that represent in a certain way railway network infrastructure data in digital format, but they are a little bit isolated. We managed to achieve a complete synergy between the CRD, GeoEditor, and CAP. We are working on RFP, but in general, we would like to streamline this and to have one single system that will contain all of this data, because it would be much easier to manage it and to operate it. And of course, the most important motivation for that was to make the process of data delivery and data management for the members of RNE and for the corridors easier, because the new system will serve as a single access point for the infrastructure data. And that is a huge step forward, because now you have to deal with 4 different systems. With one system for all the IMs and all the corridors, it would be much easier to deal with only one single system. Of course, we would like to lower the operating and managing costs, because currently we operate 4 systems. We would in the future operate and manage only one system. Of course, there is another need, and that came from the digital capacity management and the TTR initiative, that is to increase the granularity of the data, to make the data, the railway network, a little bit more detailed in a way how it is defined in our systems. We need more of information, especially the track information, which currently within the current systems, this is not possible. We also would like to increase the automation of data supply process, because currently most of the data is provided in a semi-automatic way, or at least to say manual way, especially for the corridors. This thanks to Milos and to all the corridors, we managed to do that in GEditor, but this was more of a manual work. We would like to introduce the full data automation, so we would actually decrease the effort for the IMs and for the corridors in the future to maintain that. And finally, we have several legal requirements and regulations that the new system must fulfill in order we can keep up with all the systems in a way to work in a way they worked before. So in this slide, you can see the future state of the new system. The working name, or the temporary name, was the Digital Railway Infrastructure Information System. As Harald mentioned, most likely it would be called Railway Infrastructure System, or RIS, but we are now working with our communication department, communication manager, and that department to actually brand it in a proper way. But for now, this is the proper description of what would be the future state of the new system. So the Digital Railway Infrastructure Information System will be a single system, and it will merge both the functionalities and the data from 4 different systems. One is the CCS CRD, or Central Reference Files Database, this one here, which is the TAF and TAP TSI regulated system for holding the information, the reference files data, of course. Then we have the functionalities and the data of a customer information platform system that will contain all the corridor data. We will completely integrate also big data GeoEditor, and we will integrate Rail Facilities Portal. That way, we would achieve to have a single system that will interact with different systems operated by RNE within the sector, such as the most important ones, PCS and TIS, not less important TCR, and of course, to fully support the TTR, or as it is called now, Digital Capacity Management. What is mentioned here is the data adapter, or a module that we will not embed in the system itself. It would be kind of a bridge or a translator that would be able to understand the data from RINF and in a controlled and organized way insert that data into the system upon request by individual IM. So we are working on aligning or investigating the possibility to connect the data that currently exists in RINF with the data that is currently digital railway infrastructure data currently existing in GEditor and CAP, RFP, and CCS CRD. And this investigation is performed within the core group that was established by the IM-RU joint sector group within the TAF and TAP TSI. Therefore, we have experts from both RINF and working group, which are the representatives of the IMs working with ERA in RINF, and we have representatives in that core group of people who are working in TAF and TAP TSI. So they are doing this in a joint forces, and we finalized the first phase of this feasibility study, where it was a very good and a very positive results came out of that feasibility study, that it is actually possible to connect the data from RINF and TAF TSI, but only for certain IMs, and it's not a generally applicable rule. Therefore, the decision to architecturally implement this would be by a data adapter. So the IMs and IMs in most of the first place will be able to choose whether they would like to take and which data they would like to take from RINF and transfer them into Digital Railway Infrastructure Information System. Of course, we will keep all the existing functionalities, because from the common users from the outside, nothing would be changed. The goal is not to change anything from the outside, neither from the user experience, nor from the functional or perspective, or to reduce the amount of and the quality of the data. When we talk about the new system, we had several major problems to solve, and the new system should be the solution for these problems, or let's say, better to say, should cover various aspects that we identified as crucial for doing this kind of exercise. So in this slide, you can see that we will first of all identify all the users of all 4 systems here, and all the users will interact with this system more or less in the same way they interact now with these 4 individual systems, which means that for the regular users, they should not be affected by implementing the new system. They should be able to access the system and work with it in a very same way they work with existing these 4 individual systems. From the very basis, what we need to do and what is absolutely a necessity is to unify the data models of these 4 systems to decide on the proper data model, and that is a qualitative aspect. So we first have to cover the qualitative aspect of the system in general. What would be the way how the data is going to be stored? Once we solve that issue and cover that aspect, the next aspect is the data content or the quantitative aspect. Of course, we currently hold significant amount of data in our systems, but that doesn't necessarily mean, as I explained earlier, that this is sufficient. And especially because the business needs are increasing, we need to also increase both and change the qualitative and quantitative aspect. And finally, the presentation layer of the system or functional aspect must be kept, so the user interaction will not be harmed in any way. On the other side, what we mentioned is that we want to automate the interaction between the system and any external systems. By external systems, we mean the systems that are on the IM side and that they contain their own railway network infrastructure description digital format. And for that purpose, we need to establish certain data formats that will be used for a data exchange. And based on that, we already do and implement the TAF-TAP TSI interface, but this is very limiting. So we had to extend. We will support both the well-known text format, which is very technical standard for exchanging digital infrastructure data, but also GeoJSON, which is a very well-known open source free standard, and we are in the process of, let's say, getting to know with the RailML community. We have some contacts with them, and now we are in the process of deciding whether we would like to proceed in that direction. Of course, neither of these 4 standards that will be used are not exclusive, which means that if we would like to support any of that, we would need to support at least 2 or 3 of them. Of course, TAF and TAP TSI is mandatory, and besides that, we would need to support at least 2 standards. So this is something that is not, the system per se must not be designed in a way that it is exclusive. It has to be inclusive, and it has to serve the purpose of all the IMs and users of the system in the future. Finally, what is probably most interesting for this group is the way how the users will interact with the system in the future. So the system will be a single system. We will not have 4 individual systems, but we will have 4 different presentations of that system. You can imagine that system as one let's say, box with 4 different faces. So CAP users will still have the CAP URL. They will still be able to access the system as CAP. They will have the same look and feel, but behind the curtains, they would actually access the one single system. The same applies to RFP users, to GeoEditor users, and CRD users. Of course, for each of these 4 systems, all of these users have different user rights and privileges, and they have to be kept. And of course, there are different criteria for registering and for accessing the system, which also has to be kept. So we, in general, will have one central part of the digital railway infrastructure information system that will cover the 3 aspects that we mentioned, but the presentations will be completely separated. So in general, for corridors, the most interesting thing is that any functional upgrades of the presentation layer of CAP will be possible afterwards, independently on the extensions and the changes of the presentation layers of the other 3 systems, keeping the same data quality and the data quantity intact. Even if there would be a necessity to extend that, that would be also reflected in all the other systems. But we will not aim for decreasing the data quality and quantity. The only, let's say, way we can do it is that we can actually upgrade if it's necessary in the future with more data details or with more data anyway in general. So currently we have identified several steps, and the whole process is quite complex. It is a phase process. Nothing happens in a big bang. So please, I would like to inform you that we do not plan any revolution, but rather evolution. So in that case, what we actually would like to do in the future is, the first thing is that the system has to be designed, agreed, developed, and then data should be migrated in phases. In general, first of all, we identify which data need to be migrated and which data the new system must contain. Of course, when it comes to CAP, in that case, we have a lot of specific data that is not contained in other systems. Each of these systems has, as I said, their own specific data. What is common and what we will, of course, always keep in mind is the metadata, users, roles, etc. for all of these 4 systems. When it comes to the data provisioning, which is also something that could be of interest, is that for basically primary and subsidiary locations, or PLCs and SLCs that are regulated within the TAF and TAP TSI, we will still keep the same approach. So using the standardized message, which is part of the regulation. For other systems, currently we have Excel or CSV or JSON files import. This is the semi-automatic way I explained, and this is something that we would really be very happy to avoid, but we would also keep the web UI for manual maintenance. When it comes to the automation, I mentioned we would like to support at least 3 standards. So TAF and TAP TSI will be preserved, and we will implement at least 2 new standards for the automatic data exchange. And we would encourage strongly all the IMs to actually exchange data with us to automate the data exchange, but to keep the backward compatibility and to be supportive for smaller IMs that might not have the automatic systems. We would still keep these 2 Excel, CSV, JSON files import and the web UI for manual maintenance. When it comes to the extended data set, I'm not sure if maybe you would really be willing to go into such details. What I would like to explain you that for the digital capacity management, it's crucially important for us to have the track information, to have a track parameters, because when it comes to the temporary capacity restriction, for instance, it's very important for that system to know which tracks are actually affected, and to be able to support that, we would need to extend from macroscopic that we currently have, as you can see here on the upper part of this diagram, to mesoscopic, which at least describes the tracks, and then we can actually provide this sufficient data granularity to TCR, and not only TCR, but all the other systems, because currently we have the projects for the digital train 2.0, such as the first and last mile, then we have ETA. So all of these business needs that are coming both from the planning and operation request the data granularity to be increased. That's the simplest, so to say, explanation. Finally, I would not like to bother you too much with these technical descriptions and how this will be described in the new system, but the benefits, what I talk about, is something that we should, of course, mention. Of course, we would like to, by merging the systems, and that is what we always explain to everyone, the goal is that all the IMs and the corridors, of course, should provide the data to a single system, and the data then should be available and dispersed to all the other systems. So the goal is to minimize the effort needed to feed the systems with the infrastructure data in order for the other systems to be able to provide more quality added value services to what we already provide. Of course, there is another thing, and that is the system should be in a way that it can reduce the human errors significantly. Of course, it can always happen, but the system with its processes of data consistency can actually help all the users to keep the data up to date and proper. So we basically have one huge step forward. forward, and that is the transformation from currently macroscopic data that we have to mesoscopic, and that is one of the most important steps that will be taken. But of course, this is something that that is, as I said, a process. We planned this, and now you will see the timeline. We planned this to last for more than a year and a half. Actually, it's more than a year and a half, basically, if you take the global high-level overview of the roadmap. So we started with this preparation in 2021, and we are doing it now in the first quarter of 2022 by preparing all the necessary documentation for public procurement. The implementation phase will start actually once we start and sign the framework agreement with a new supplier. Once the new supplier is selected through the public procurement, the implementation of the system itself is planned to last 3 quarters. So we expected by the, let's say, mid or end first quarter 2023 to have the system completed and finalized, and then we can start with the data migration phase. For data migration phase, we estimated it will take at least a year or let's say 3 quarters. So by the end of 2023, we should have all 4 systems migrated and operating in the within the new system. But the operation phase will start the moment when we actually start migration of the first system. The first system planned to be migrated is CRD from CCS, of course, because it contains the basic data for locations. When it comes to the tender, the public procurement, the timeline, we cannot tell you and disclose too much because we are still in the process of public procurement. What I can tell you is that we are currently in this phase that will start in the 2nd of May, on the 2nd of May, and this is the phase with live oral presentations of the contenders. What I can tell you is that we have only basically 3. We've been shortlisted to 3 companies that are now going to present that from the week of 2nd of May. And after the oral presentations, we would reiterate through their offers a couple of times as long as it is necessary, but the goal is to have the framework agreement signed on the 31st of May. Maybe we can prolong that for plus minus 1-2 weeks, but not more than that. And immediately after that, the implementation will start in a way that first we will establish the working groups that will work on the functional specification, and after that we will proceed with the implementation until the end of this year. So the future steps are, as I said, the working group that will have several important tasks from defining the functional and non-functional requirements until the user acceptance testing, because we would really like to do everything in a very transparent way, and the goal is that the system is acceptable for all the interested parties. So we don't want to actually impose anything on that, but through user acceptance testing, we would like to have the process of adjusting the system to best fit the needs of the community. So more or less that is all when it comes to the Digital Railway Infrastructure Information System. I would like to thank you for your time and for your attention. Please feel free if you have any questions. I'm open for answering.
Thank you very much, Harald and Vojkan, for this very comprehensive and interesting presentation. I think what you're doing is not easy. I think everybody who was already involved to a project like this, bringing different systems with different data, with so many stakeholders and possible use cases in one, it's not that easy. You thank you very much, but I think at the end they will push the whole sector if you're successful, and I think you will be. We already have one question in the chat. It's from Eric Jardin from SNCF Réseau. He's saying, CRD is also used for bilateral TSI legal compliant exchanges. What will happen to it if replaced by TRIS?
I can answer. Well, basically, the regulation says the tough and up TSI standard stipulates that there must be a system that contains the reference files. It will not harm if we extend the system with additional information, and then we submit the new system to European Railway Agency for certification. As long as we fulfill all the required functionalities that are in the tough and up TSI standard, and as long as the new system fulfills that, there will be no problems with certifying it as a new CRD.
Thank you for this answer. There are no questions anymore in the chat. Are there other questions you want to raise to this topic? This seems not the case, as I can see. So then, thank you very much. I think you make everything very clear, so there are no questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And
thank you.
Then we will skip to the next topic presented by Miloslav Kogler, as I informed you this morning regarding the customer information platform. So Miloslav, the floor is yours. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for the floor. Let me take over the screen sharing, and if that worked, you already should be able to see my screen. So we heard, we saw the preview of the future, how several IT applications in the RNE portfolio will be integrated into one, and this will happen on the back end. But what I will show you today is what we have on the front end of one of these applications, and this is the customer information platform of the rail freight corridors. So first of all, what does this customer information platform, or CAP, of the RFCs stand for? We see it, and together with the RFCs, we have positioned it as an information one-stop shop of the entire RFC network. Why entire RFC network? We actually came here in a stepwise manner. The application itself was many years ago developed by Corridor Rhine-Alpine, who was the front runner in use of this application, and then eventually it was handed over to RNE, who deployed it to more and more corridors. Traditionally, we had 9 corridors using the application for several years. And recently, we managed to also deploy it to the last 2 corridors, the corridors Alpine, Western Balkan, and Rhine-Danube. And with that, we have reached one of our goals that we have all corridors represented in the platform. Now, the information which we provide for these corridors is centered around an interactive map. That means in this interactive map, you can find, study, and observe the routing of all 11 corridors in terms of their main lines, diversionary lines, connection to terminals and service facilities. And along these routes of corridors, you can study or access and follow the attributes such as the line parameters, which are already in place, but also which are to be deployed, such as the ETCS deployment plans or the projects which are going on along the corridors. All this is supported by a full multi-corridor view. That means you as a user of the application can steer and decide whether you want to have all corridors displayed or whether you would like to focus on your view only on some of these corridors. And eventually you can also turn on the railway lines which go beyond the routes of the corridors. Now, after this map view, we offer also some interactive functions here. First of them is the route planning function, which we have extended a little bit and try to follow the model of how you know maybe the Google Maps. So you can define your origin and destination, but you can also define your waypoints which you would like to follow on your route, and then you can define additional parameters which your route should fulfill. In our world, this would be the maximum axle load or meter load. And after doing that, the application would display you the route which suits more your defined criteria. Above this, along the corridors which are in CAP, we also provide information about the rerouting options. That means in case of contingency, unplanned interruption of the railway line, what are the off-the-shelf prepared solutions to bypass such interrupted line. And now, leaving a little bit the joint document structure, the interactive map, we also feature a joint document structure where the corridors provide a set of documents available on all corridors in one place. So really, this is the one-stop shop of all information regarding the corridors which you can find in the application. And all the information or all the features which we provided here have one common denominator. Our motivation to provide this was to provide always a customer benefit. That means you as a customer of the corridors don't have to look up the information which may be available also elsewhere, but in different structure, in different places. that you can easily find it in a single spot and retrieve it there. With that said, just a brief view of a schematic display of the corridors. So these are all 11 corridors displayed in a schema, and you can observe how they are interconnected to each other. This is a rough schematic representation. If you enter the CAP, you will see more details. You will see the interconnections of the corridors in a much detailed level, but this is kind of a teaser to motivate you to go there and examine the application. With that said, when do we think might be the most interesting point in time for you to study the information in CAP? As already mentioned, one of the use cases which we've seen is you are an existing customer, you used to run train along the corridor, and the line where you run trains is suddenly interrupted. So in this case, CAP is the tool which provides you in a geographical display information about the predefined, prepared solutions to bypass the interrupted line. It's not only that you have this information displayed in the map, but you will find all the information on line parameters along this rerouting, and also the comparison of these line parameters with regard to the interrupted line. And we also want to develop this a little bit further to enrich it with additional information, which is the travel time. But actually, this is one of the use cases which we already largely support in CAP. So if you come, most of this information would already be available to you. If you look a little bit beyond that, another use case would be you are maybe interested in conducting a business along the corridor, and you would like to study the route between the origin and destination of your traffic and the applicable line properties. So for this, we offer the route planning functionality, which is already in place, and we display the main infrastructure parameters. But in the midterm, we would also further enrich this information with information on costs. So you can study maybe also not just the fastest, but also the cheapest route or the path availability. And all this shall be possible thanks to the integration into the digital railway information and sharing information with other IT systems in RNE's portfolio. If you look even a little bit more in the future, and as a long-term vision, what we could also provide in the future is to combine the routing of the corridors with the information on the punctuality of the trains along the corridors, and with that potentially present a kind of heat map of connections and points where the trains usually tend to be according to the schedule, or on the contrary, on the connections and destinations where the train tends to be delayed. Said this is a little bit long-term vision, as this requires also the interconnection with the operational information from another IT tool. This is the train information system. That said, we said CAP is a tool of the corridors, the RFC network. But already in the moment when we went for displaying the rerouting options, we needed to also map certain railway lines which go beyond the routing of the corridors. So railway lines which don't belong to the corridors, but in case of contingencies are needed for the rerouting. That brought us to the question, what shall be the future of CAP? Shall it remain a corridor tool, or shall it develop towards a network tool? We conducted a feasibility study on that, and we compared these two approaches. Actually, we found that both of these approaches have some strength, but also some weaknesses. And our main conclusion was that in the short term, the CAP as a corridor tool would be the one, the strength of which prevails, because when we focus on corridors, we can really have a focused view. We can better treat the quality of the data. We can also maintain lean decision-making procedures. and also conduct this with a moderate cost. But actually, in the long term, the network approach, or have positioning CAP as a network tool, would be the more robust approach, simply because most of the traffic tends to start beyond or finish beyond the routes of the corridors, and any useful functionality may be unlimited to the routing of the corridors if we don't go beyond that. So therefore, we actually concluded in our feasibility study that we would like to develop the CAP towards the network tool, but to do this in a stepwise manner. Therefore, we earmarked some use cases where we would like to extend the CAP in the stepwise manner. And after covering the RFC network and all rerouting options, we now aim at covering the remaining 20 core and comprehensive network, mapping selected lines earmarked as essential by the customers, and finally mapping the entire network of individual infrastructure managers as a pilot. Where we came until now, that means April 2022, we have already completed the RFC network. On top of this, the entire network of 4 infrastructure managers, meaning Chef, LFP, Azure Infra, and MAF, is now mostly mapped in CAP. Mostly means more than 97% of lines of these infrastructure managers is mapped in CAP. On top of this, a majority of railway lines of further 6 infrastructure managers is already mapped in CAP. And altogether, this means that 78,520 kilometers of lines, or in average 40% of the total network of the IMs which are involved in at least one corridor, is already mapped in the application. It's not just mapping the lines, it's always the information which is associated with these lines. We've been also working on this to extend this. So we started with a set of line properties which were deemed as essential for the customers of the rail freight corridors. These were the line category, which combines the axle load and the meter load, traction power, intermodal freight code, gauging, gradient 1, gradient 2, but also signaling and the ETCS. And we extended this list of line properties, first for the purposes of reroutings, but later as a standard line properties by track gauge, number of tracks, maximum train length, maximum speed, usage, whether the line is dedicated to freight, passenger, or both types of traffic, and miscellaneous as a additional info, if applicable. So not only do we extend the geographical scope of the tool, but also the set of parameters which we represent in the application. With that being said, let's have a look how you can actually access the CAP and how the application looks like. First of all, we operate an info page, which is available under cap.rne EU. You will find a lot of useful information about the CAP application there, including a set of short videos demonstrating how to use CAP, how to use its functionalities. Also, another presentation about CAP, similar to the one I'm showing you today, but also one click navigation to the application itself. What needs to be underlined: to access CAP, no registration is required, and this access is free of charge. So you can anytime access the application and enter it. In case you still have difficulties to get to it, we of course provide you support with accessing the tool, and the support is provided via the support.cap@rne.eu, and we answer any inquiries during the usual business hours. On top of the RNE info page, you will find a link to CAP on the website of each corridor. So each of the 11 corridors websites would navigate you to CAP as well. Now, after clicking on the login button, you will arrive on the CAP login mask. This is also accessible under cap-online.rne.eu. This is how the login mask look like. And the single action we ask you to do here, once you are here, is to tell us to which user group you belong. This also helps us to understand who are our users. So we have clustered the users among RUs, shippers and operators, service facilities and last mile operators, research institutions, public authorities, and infrastructure managers or allocation bodies. Or if you don't think you belong to, if you think you don't belong to any of these groups, you can also enter as other. In any case, it's a one click of any of these buttons, which brings you inside of the application to the interactive map. And this would be the picture which you would see in front of you after entering the application. So this is the landing page, is the interactive map where most functionalities in CAP are clustered. And let's have a look at them in a little bit more detail. What is where? On the left-hand side, you will see the main navigation menu, which enables you to navigate between the main areas. So you are, after entering the application, in the interactive map, but via this interface, you can navigate to the information documents. You can navigate to the feedback provision area. But if you have internal user rights, you can also navigate to the data management area here. Now, above the screen, you will see the area for multi-corridor view selection. When you enter the application as a public user, you will see all corridors activated, except of the network plus layer. So these are the lines which go beyond the routings of corridors. These are not selected by default. Still, you can decide to also select the network plus layer, or you can decide to unselect a few corridors if you would like to focus your view on any of them. On the left-hand side of the map, you will see the main control area for the layers. So here you can decide whether the nodes or terminals should be displayed in the map, but you can also decide which of the views should be presented. We start with a bi-rail freight corridor view, where the corridors are displayed by distinct colors. But you can choose another view, which is the RFC line category, to show which lines are principal, diversionary, or connecting. You can select all the individual line properties here. You can select the BTCS build status information. You can explore the projects, or you can change the background to TEN-T core network or comprehensive network information. For each of the teams you select, on the right-hand side, you see a legend, which explains the meanings of the objects and the color codes displayed in the map. Now, in the blue pane above the map, you will find a number of useful functionalities. I will just name the most significant one of them. First is a search field. Here you can search for any location in the map, any CAP node or any CAP segment, and after searching for it and selecting it, the map would automatically zoom to that location. You can switch the background map. At the moment, we offer OpenStreetMap, but we also offer a blank map view. You can then use any of these buttons which enable you to measure distances, to zoom to a specific area, to come back to the default view. But here the most interesting functionality seems to be the export of the map. So with a one click, you can export the map which is in front of you. And then further buttons enables you to activate the dynamic functions, such as the ICM lines and route planning. Now, let's have a look how one of these dynamic functions can be used, namely the route planning. In the example in front of us, we already see the map with the route displayed in the map. But let's speak a bit about how we arrived here. So first, we activated the function for route planning. This was our first step. And this triggered a pop-up window with the instructions which describe to you how to use this functionality in three very simple steps. Out of these three steps, step 1 and 3 is mandatory, step 2 is optional. But let's start the first step, which is mandatory. You have to define at least 2 points on the map from where you want to go to where you want to go. So your origin and destination, but you can actually define up to 10 points to also give the application a trigger where you want to go to. Now, the second step and the optional one, you can use the additional filters. So you can tell to the application that your minimum requirements is that the railway lines which would be considered would enable 22.5 ton of X load or more. Or you can skip this part and just continue to the next step, which is triggering of the calculation. What will happen afterwards? The application will consider all routes in CAP which fulfill your criteria and display the shortest one, the shortest option to you. In case there is no route which fulfills your criteria, but the connection is still there, the application would still show you the route, but the part which doesn't meet your filter would be displayed in a different color. So the part meeting the criteria would be in green, and the part not meeting it is in yellow. So in this example, we on purpose took the origin in Belgrade and the destination in Thessaloniki, just to show you that the last mile on the Greek side would not fulfill this, and to illustrate how the application would distinguish this with a different color. On top of displaying the route in the map, you would then also gain access to a table view of your map, which you could further study, filter, or export based on your preferences. So here you can actually take with you all the route segments with all the relevant line properties along your route. So for your later reference, you can export this from CAP. With that, let us leave a little bit the map view. I also mentioned the next area after the map view where we have a common approach is the information documents area. And in this area, you will navigate via the main pane on the left-hand side. So the information documents is just below the interactive map about and above the feedback. And once here, you can select, or before selecting, you can actually even adjust your multi-corridor view if you want to just look for documents of a handful of corridors or individual one. But after doing so, you can select from the available documents. In general, the documents are referred to the corridor information documents, the CIDs. The latest two available versions thereof are presented together with the implementation plan. This is followed by the capacity offer information. Again, for the latest two timetable periods, the prearranged path catalog is available, the reserve capacity offer is available, and this is accompanied by the framework for capacity allocation of each corridor. And further information such as the temporary capacity restrictions, rerouting scenarios, corridor performance, annual reports, user satisfaction surveys, and further corridor-specific information is available here. After you select your area of the interest, then the document tab would be adjusted. Here you can find some explanatory information, but most importantly also linked to the desired documents, which you can download, take with you, and study them. So this is in general what CAP features. But now I would like to show you one of the functionalities which we have focused on recently to develop further and to complete. And this is the support to the contingency management processes on the RFCs. The first step in the support was really collecting the rerouting scenarios information for all corridors and making them available in CAP via the document area. This was step one. Of course, the appealing part starts when you actually transfer this information into a map view. So we have also done that. And again, let me show how you can explore this information in CAP. To do that, you again have to activate the functionality, which is via a button available above the map. This would trigger an instruction window with guide how to use this in a few steps. And also all the ICM lines along your selected corridors would be displayed as red lines in the interactive map. And those lines which are red and full lines actually feature in minimum one rerouting. There are also ICM lines for which there is not a rerouting, but this would be distinguished as a dashed line. Although in our example, there is none. Now, after clicking on any of these ICM lines, the picture would slightly change. And it would change in a way that the application would zoom to these ICM lines and its available rerouting options, which would pop up in different shades of green. And only this one ICM line would be activated. After that, you would get a small pop-up window, which would give you some basic information about the selected ICM line, meaning the name of the line, its length, the corridor which it is associated to, and the number of reroutings. In this particular situation, we also see that there are rerouting options, 3 of them, and they are geographically represented on the map. And before clicking on any of these options, you can also hover with your mouse over them, and the application would give you a hint via a series of icons in which line properties there are differences, or let's say negative differences, in comparison to the ICM line. So in our example, the 3 icons would say that be aware, the signaling system along the rerouting options is different, the gauging is different, and the gradient is higher. This is really just a first hint. After you click on any of the rerouting options, you get a clustered view to the line properties, which appear along this rerouting option. On top of this, you also get the length of the rerouting options, which countries and which IMs is involved, and also you can either display this in a tabular view or export this route or export it as a map, and that is the information which you can not only view, but which you can also take with you for later reference. So this is basically what we provide in the rerouting options ICM lines. And before concluding my presentation, a quick preview what we are also working on. It's a small improvement, but I think a very useful one. Along all corridors, we display also the information about the terminals which are associated with the corridors. So the service facilities involved in the intermodal freight business. And right now, this information is visible in the map. What we aim to provide and what we actually also committed to provide via the CAD books of the corridors is to provide you a tabular view of this information, which would follow the list of selected corridors. In our example, these would be corridors Baltic, Adriatic, and Amber, which you can first steer by adjusting the multi-corridor view. Then another button would be introduced in CAP, and if you click that button, a list of terminals which are associated with these corridors would be shown to you, and cluster the main information, such as the name of the service facility, its operator, terminal type, corridor which it is associated to, address, but also link to its website for more details. Oh, this is a small improvement. We expect this to be available in a couple of weeks. And after that, we foresee a general development freeze to be able to integrate CAP into the digital railway infrastructure information system. I would be happy if this presentation raised your interest and motivate you to visit and explore CAP. If you will have any feedback which you would like to share with us or require any support or would like to discuss more about the functionalities of CAP, please don't hesitate to contact me either via my general email, my personal email address, miloslav.kogler@rne.eu, or via the generic CAP support address, support.cap@rne.eu. And for now, it's myself, a single face of CAP, but we are also building the corridor team. So I expect when I will show you this presentation or similar one in a couple of months from today, that there would be already more contacts for CAP shown in this final slide. That was it from my side, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Miloslav, for this comprehensive presentation. I think we gained a lot of information about SIP, and for on this call, I can would be happy if you could use SIP as well, as we are happy to put in all this data, because I think in SIP you can gain a lot of information about all the tracks and routes we are in charge of. So we have 3 questions already in the chat, and one is already in the discussion in written form. So maybe I can put this to Miloslav, that maybe he can answer it properly. The first question is from Stefan Lecho. He wants to know if there is an overview which IAM will be integrated in SIP. I think this question is, although longer question, is when and how.
Mm-hmm. There is an overview which infrastructure managers have mapped which part of their network. I only provide this in a clustered manner, but if you are interested in that in more detail, we can also provide. As mentioned, we have 4 infrastructure managers which have a ratio of 97 or more % of their infrastructure mapped in CAP, and we have a handful of more who have more than 50% of that. Our basic requirement for this is that the IAM is involved in a minimum 1 corridor. So we would not have infrastructure managers, even if members of RNE, who are not in any corridor. Just to give you an example, Network Rail is a big infrastructure manager, member of RailNet Europe, but exited the corridor North Sea Mediterranean, so you would not find it in the table. But there are a couple of more examples. IAMs usually quite far away from the center of the railway network, such as Finnish Railways or Northern Macedonia. But even in case of these IAMs, as we see that the corridor policy is going to be more associated with the TEN-T network, we actually expect that latest at that point in time, further IAMs would be joining CAP and would have their network mapped there. So in a few years from now, I also see IAMs from Finland or maybe Western Balkan countries joining CAP and having their network mapped. Right now, it's everywhere where you have a corridor. In minimum, the part of IAM's network which is in the corridor is mapped in CAP.
Thank you, Miloslav, for answering this question this way. The second question is regarding the charges, the info of the charges, and the question is if it's planned to include this information in SIP, especially in its route planning function. The question is if it's smart to integrate them or just keep it separate in its system. And maybe one thing up front, one of the meeting rules was just to please shut down your video if you're not talking or have a question, please. Thank you, because this meeting is recorded. Thank you. So Miloslav, sorry for that.
We have this option as one of the features which we have in the pipelines of the developments, but exactly the questions points at the main consideration. We have to see what is the more reasonable approach, whether it's more reasonable to associate this information and make it available in CAP based on the contents of CIS, or whether it's more reasonable to keep them separated. And we will be able to evaluate this once the integration of several IT tools into the digital railway infrastructure proceeds. So it's in the pipeline, but but actually this is the main consideration we also have to take.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last question, maybe it's answered, but maybe you can correct the answer, is the question how it is ensured that the latest information, for example, maximum train length, etc., is available or is made available in this tool. I think there was already a notice in ZIP, but maybe you can bring it in your words.
I will actually comment on this. We really were able to ensure to have mostly up-to-date information thanks to the dedication of the corridors. So we worked closely with corridors. We had a coordinator, or we still have a coordinator on the level of each corridor who then coordinates its IMs to keep the latest information about the existing infrastructure, but also a preview into the future, the plans, the projects, where the infrastructure is expected to be improved. But as my colleague said before, we are coming to a point where we reach the limits of this approach. So if we leave corridors and we go beyond that, we still can work with approaches like doing annual updates, doing updates twice a year. But really, we have to look for a solution how to make automated interfaces to the sources of this information, which are maintained on national level, either by a direct connection of RNE's digital infrastructure to this national IAMs or via connection to RINF, because the more information we have, the more challenging it's to keep this up to date. So we are now in the process of leaving this manual way of keeping contents up to date towards an automated interface environment.
It means at the end that on a daily basis, there will sometimes can be a lag between the latest version on IAM side and the informations in ZIP due to this process.
Unfortunately, yes, that's what may happen. Yeah.
And as a managing director of an RFC, I know what it means to update this information. So I don't think this is a process you should do on a daily basis in a manual way. So. But this is not a legal binding information system, so therefore it's okay to have it in this kind of rhythm for updates, I think. But I think the automatization in the future is a good approach to address this problem.
Thank you for your feedback on this. Yeah, this is where we aim.
Good. Then we have no questions anymore in the chat. Do you have any other questions, the audience? I can't see any new hands, so therefore, Miloslav, thank you very much for your presentation. Always interesting about the changes in ZIP, and then we go to the next and the last topic. It's about the rail facilities portal, the network and corridor information, which we presented by Jean-Marc Hillenberg and Michael Spannlang. So I give you the floor for the next presenters. We can't hear you. You're muted.
Mark, you are muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for the floor. We'll do the presentation jointly. Michael Spannlang will be doing some of the live demos. But first of all, let me introduce you to the Rail Facilities Portal. I will just be sharing my screen. Hope everybody can see it. We'll switch to. Still, everybody can see it in a good size. Yes. Okay, fine. Why you see here, besides the logo of RailNet Europe, also the logo of the International Union of Road and Rail Combined Transport, is that Rail Facilities Portal is operated actually by both organizations. How that came? Well, the initiative here came from the European Commission, setting up a common European web portal for information on all kinds of rail service facilities, with the aim to, on the one hand, have for the service facilities a comfortable way of publishing information about their services, and thereby making this also a possible compliance tool, and on the other hand, also offer the users of such facilities a single source of information for the planning and optimization of the transport chains throughout Europe, and that makes the RFCs portal a business tool. In June 2020, RailNet Europe took over the ownership of RFP from the European Commission, and the operation of and the portal management of RFCs portal is carried out jointly by RailNet Europe and UIRR. Well, what are the benefits of RFCs portals? There are a lot of benefits for very different audiences. The service facility operators, it's also a business tool or promotion tool to show a service, their services to a very broad audience. It's cheaper and more effective than having, of course, all the information, having it on a national website. Of course, it's a compliance tool for them, as just mentioned, and the standardized structure we do have. I will also show you a little bit of how that works, which is ensuring not only compliance, but also reflecting market needs of the customers. For the infrastructure managers, it's also a convenient way and standardized way for the data input to have a full digitalization of the content section, including service facility information, and thereby, of course, creating this mentioned European platform for service facility information, which can further promote the international cooperation also among infrastructure managers and service facility operators. For the rail freight corridors, of course, contributing the achievement of the RFC objectives, but also not only the tool is facilitating the legally mandatory provision of the terminal information, but also serves for CSS managers and will probably also serve for CSS managers of RFCs to access all the info needed for their customers at one place. What's clear, railway undertakings, of course, have thereby an easily accessible, digitalized, and it's I will show you in the live demo a map-based source of information supporting the planning of their services, and also the full range of commercial and technical access information to service facilities. And this is actually more user-friendly, more efficient than searching at the very diverse web pages for the information. And the same goes, of course, also for shippers and freight forwarders who have the possibility to very transparently explore the opportunities, where to load, unload, also CT operators. And last but not least, for regulatory bodies, which we are in contact with, and we very much do hope that in future they will use the RFCs portal also to check whether the service facility operators are in line with the regulation regarding the publication of information. It's already highly supported by some very important sector stakeholders. So we have a very positive feedback from them, since digitalization is one of the main issues regarding the further development of rail, and both regulatory bodies, but also the Commission and also the sector are very much welcoming, making the RFCs portal really a single source of information, and to ensure that every user gets his and her information as quick as possible. Well, what did we achieve up to now? We have included, or we have already over 16,000 service facilities across Europe in the map, which is scalable and clickable. This covers, by the way, 16 member states, respective IAMs, of course. And we have also first European member state allowing RFP to be used as a digital compliance tool, that is namely Italy. And there we have also, this shows that 3,000 Italian service facilities are also here in the RFCs portal. We have around a very high usage already, with over 208,000 user interactions, also including the map actions and searches, since this possibility to monitor these interactions came into force on the 10th of May 2021. Well, when looking at the service facilities numbers, we just looked at them just to show you also the dynamics about it on the 4th of October, and now there has been a steady increase. There's a continuous increase, but also at the end of this presentation, I will also ask you why we need your support a little bit to further promote and enhance Rfcs portal. We're also very happy that the interface to DB Netzwerke is finalized, which is adding on top of these numbers even 1,700 facilities more. Just
Jean-Marc,
yes?
may I interrupt you at this point? Because
Yes,
I can tell you that today we got the clearance. We will activate the interface on Monday.
That's
so,
great
and
to hear.
overnight we will add 1,700 to 1,800 service facilities from DB Netzwerke.
Yeah, so this makes it almost up to 18,000. But as you can see, this is continuously growing, and the user interactions are really significant. We have a total number of visitors of around 18,000, and among which new visitors are 10,951. We have around 6,000 returning visitors. So you can see that this is steadily growing. But of course, we're in a growing phase, and that's important to say. Besides the technically mandatory information, we of course do need further information from service facilities which are already joined RFP, because we have service facilities who have joined, but we don't have the full information set. Also, further inclusion of other service facilities which are not operated by RNE members, so not by IAMs. Also here we are supported by UIR, who are working on getting more and more service facilities into RFP. Also, as just Michael mentioned, we are working on establishing necessary interfaces for the general purpose, and the first one of such interface was done with DBNet, a so-called APN, which allows this access or automated access to this 1,700 service facilities information being in RFP. Long-term aim is using RFP as a Europe-wide compliance tool also for service facilities publishing their legally mandatory information, as just said earlier on. We have also made a short market study, which on the one hand tried to clear a little bit the picture on how the users do appreciate the RFP. We had some very interesting information. It would be too much to go into the very details of this market study. What we can tell that those using the Rfcs portal save up to 1 to 2 hours of working time, for instance, and also are able to connect to other Rfcs when planning their routes. But also there was a high demand on further development, because still the results showed us that this very nice tool and very useful tool has still there's a low awareness of the existence of the portal. And here will be the first thing where we will be asking for your assistance as well as RFED corridors, because we are still in the course of further communication and promotion of this portal, because really still the awareness of this portal is not so high, even though that the usage of this portal, so providing information and also accessing information currently is free of charge, and the audience is much broader, as just said, than with the national web page. Data providers also would like to enter additional information, so that's also something we got back from them. And also what data consumers, so the users actually, would be in need of. The further capabilities are such as a route finder, real-time data on service facility conditions, both static and dynamic, and interconnectivity with other systems. So this just a hint for the further development, but how this development will be going also I will be speaking in a few seconds. The data provision is very important. We had the feedback that should be automated, preferably through APNs. And the data consumers, and that was something which, well, it did not very much surprise us, because there are the consultant who made the market study has also done a comparison to other portals, and this benchmark, one of them was the RISCOMEX portal, which is for inland shipping, the other the portal of the Aviation Association, EBAA, and the continuous financing would be needed to be ensured by EU funding. also for the next years, because what we see that data consumers are not willing to pay for accessing RFP, and they're also at similar portals, they also have the free use policy and are financed by other means. But this exactly does underline what we are envisaging with the Digital Rail Infrastructure Information System project, the DRIS project, which includes actually an integrated environment for all our applications, that is the correct way to move forward, both from an IT and also from a financial aspect. And the operation of RFP as a standalone application, and that was also a result, cannot be based on the user fees, as they would not pay for these. So the free usage is also the case at similar web portals of other transport modes, which we looked at together with the consultant. In any case, this proves that you need an integrated system, and it's correct that we are going this way with the DRIS project. So how can you support us? We would be highly welcoming if we could be presenting RFP at ragtag meetings, linking probably RFP also on the websites of your RFC corridors. And probably also what we could do is a common organization of dedicated webinars hosted by RNE specifically for the RFC needs. So all this is possible to do. This with the aim of having a really fully functioning, also content-wise, fully functioning RFP. This would enable, as I just said, CSS managers to easily pass on needed information about SFOs to their customers. The SFOs along their RFC lines can use the appearance in RFP to get their services being advertised to a much broader audience, and the railway undertakings on corridors, but also not only on corridors, but in general, can reliably and also faster plan their new, according also to the new timetable concept RNE is introducing the TTR for smart capacity. So this all would be supported by the Rfcs portal. Also, I just mentioned regulatory bodies could easier check the compliance. Well, this said in theory, and before going to NCI, I would like just to show you how that portal works. You may know our general page, which is rne.eu, and we have here the RFP link. If you click on that, you come to this page. You can by clicking login, you can access the page. To register, it's free of charge for everyone. And if you log in, you come to this interface. What do you see here? You see here a scalable map, so you can zoom in and out. Service facilities are shown here. On the right side, here an explanation of the map, legend icons, which you can see: passenger stations, intermodal terminal, a multifunction rail terminal, public siding, private siding, marshalling yard, and so on. And you can simply just zoom into the map. Let's say you're looking for a service facility near Budapest, for instance, and we would just, let's click on this one or maybe this one. It doesn't matter. You get the information, and you might, of course, here see that not all information at the moment is available. And this is also, by the way, the reason why we are asking you that you make aware the terminals on your corridor that this portal is a really great chance to get the information about the services be known to a much broader public. Why? You have here even a satellite picture depicting exactly where that station is, whom it belongs to. You have the telephone number, you have or the website, and then you have very different possibilities to include information about your services. There's about the description, about your charges, access conditions, You see, we have already some information on this. Also, the capacity allocation, booking conditions can be displayed if that is desired, and also links and documents can be displayed as well. You can also export this information into a PDF. So this is from the architecture a very great tool. What we are really looking for, that more and more information about those who are already in, and of course we highly welcome all terminals here which might not be included at the moment. But as you can see, over 70,000 terminals here in Europe are included, and really the aim would be to have the data quality at such a level from the terminals that it would really create a win-win situation for both users and consumers at this stage. So that much on RFP. And before I pass on the floor to Michael, a real very 3-minute speech about the NCI. So what is NCI about? NCI is to display the network statements and corridor information documents. We created this tool to have these. Yes?
Marc, do you mind that I do that?
If you want, of course, yes, please.
Okay. Share the screen.
Would you like to go on with the presentation?
Yes, I do. I do the presentation.
Okay, fine.
Hey, welcome to NCI. NCI is a small.
One question. Could you please open your camera? It would be nice.
There it is. Absolutely right.
Thank you.
Okay, NCI is a small but very useful tool. Imagine you are not a very experienced user looking for infrastructure organization about the European railway network. You have limited possibilities. You can look into the portals. You can have a look into rail facility portal, but you also could read, which is rather common, the network statements and the corridor information documents. Rather soon, Europe is a rather small continent. You have to read more than one of these documents. So it could be that you read a couple of hundred or maybe even thousands of pages, which is extremely laborious. Wouldn't it be an idea to collect all these documents, fill it in a kind of full text database, provide some search criteria, and then you can exactly find what you're looking for? Exactly that is NCI. NCI, the goal of NCI is to digitalize the text of the network statements and the corridor information documents, and also the implementation plans, and to be able to search there. Currently, we have a production and a testing system. If you want to play around and simply call up the test systems, you cannot damage anything. And just to be on the safe side, RailNet Europe is not responsible for, because we simply cannot guarantee for the completeness and the correctness of the tool, of the data which is inside. So this is an information tool for the the users. It's not a compliance tool. So here it differs a little bit from the approach of Rail Facility Portal, where we tend to install Rail Facility Portal also as a compliance tool. A major step forward in digitalization of network statements and corridor information documents was the agreement upon the common structure. So there is a common chapter structure in all network statements that you find the same kind of information in special chapter number all over Europe. So by example, the chapter 3.1 contains the same information in Italy, in Portugal, in Germany, or in Austria. And the benefit of the corridor information documents is that the corridor information documents are more standardized than network statements. And we created this tool. We started mid of 2020. We came to a stable environment in end of 2021, where we had a written voting for the infrastructure managers. Mostly the infrastructure managers agreed in going live. Just one or two disagreed because certain criteria, which we are currently overcoming, were not given. And less than a month later, unanimously, all corridor managers agreed to go live with NCI, with the timetable 2022, and currently we are also presenting the timetable 2023. So we ended the development phase, and currently we are in a kind of maintenance phase, and also constantly every 2 weeks creating and introducing change requests, features which have been not part of the initial scope. So if any of you wants to provide data or has a good idea how to improve NCI, I take that as a kind of open source community. Just tell me and we will discuss that, and chances are good that if it's a good proposal, that it will be realized. Currently we have these eight rail freight corridors in our database, and additionally 19 infrastructure managers. If an infrastructure manager or a corridor wants to upload the documents, he can do it by himself, but the documents have to meet certain criteria. If you do not meet the preconditions, then it's not possible. Despite of that, it's important for you to know that the formatting is absolutely free. So if you look under the motor cover, you are loading up the document, then we strip the formatting from the text, then we provide the search criteria, and if there are some hits, then we reassemble the formatting with the text and precisely provide you the information you have been looking for. This leads to the situation that we are partly reprogramming Microsoft Word. Therefore, we have to, if you want to be part of the action, we will be able to support you in any way, but the documents have to meet the preconditions. By example, it has to be a Microsoft DocX document. But enough of all theory, I will show you how the system works, and it's rather easy. This is the landing page of NCI. As you see, you do not need to register. It's free. All that you need is the URL and just start playing. This is the production environment, so let's play around with the corridor information documents. If the first time you are entering, you simply have to say that who you are, and that's it. So here you can click around in the search criteria. By example, I want to search in these three corridors. I want to search in the timetable 2023, and let's say I want to see the chapters 1.1 and 1.2. You can also search via countries or via certain tags, that meaning a text that you're looking for. And additionally, as you can see here, including annexes, a lot of information is included in the documents via annexes. These annexes can also be uploaded, we insist on to show for ourselves that we provide all documents. So that means if we provide the complete, if you want to upload it, the complete implementation plan, the complete corridor information document, all chapters and all annexes, and all of them can be retrieved by the end user. So let's click, and that's it. So if I go back and look for something different, for example, it's the same. Here in the middle, you can see the number of annexes. If there are annexes, they are presented at the end of the text. So these are the hits. What if you click on? Then we present you the fraction of the original corridor information document as it was uploaded. With all the links, with all the formatting, with everything. And this is the most easiest way to retrieve all kinds of information which are in corridor documents and infrastructure and network statements as we think. And of course, it's not only possible to see it on the screen. You can also download the complete document or just download the chapter. That's the way how it looks like if you download it. As you see, the system is rather quick. So, of course, you can go back and change the search criteria. And by example, say, okay, I do not want to look in corridor information documents. I want to search in network statements, which is not applicable maybe for you, but same mechanism. For example, I want to say something, see about something infrastructure information about, by example, DB Netz AG. They have not uploaded documents from 2022, 2023. So you can see here we have two annexes. It's the same mechanism, just like in corridor information documents. Here you can browse and read all the documents. And at the end, there are the annexes, which can also be read and downloaded. This is a fast and easy tool to retrieve into search and retrieve information from all corridor information documents and all network statements which are uploaded. The ability of pre-formatting the documents are unlimited. But if you load up a new version and of a corridor information document or of a network statement, it might be that you use a formatting possibility in Microsoft Word, which we did not take into account. As you might know, the possibilities to format in Microsoft Word are nearly unlimited. So it might be that it does not work on the first try. Just inform us, and we will change NCI in a way that you can upload your documents. That was short, but I hope it was informative for you.
Thank you, Jean-Marc and Michael, for this nice presentation. And I fully support your approach of increasing the number of facilities to put their data in an RFP, as we do on Corridor 1 as we did in the last TAC from Corridor 1 and 2. And I think everybody should be aware that it's important that all facilities should be this portal. I have one question seen in the chat from Stefan Lecho. Can the RFP info be retrieved via an API? I'm not a technical guy. I can't.
Is this question concerning concerning NCI or RFP?
RFP. Can the RFP info be retrieved via an API?
Sure, Marc, would you mind that I answer this?
Yes, of course, please.
Generally, we have a limited number of possibilities to put data into rail facility portals or to get it out. Of course, as you have seen, we can print out the data, we can have a look on the screen, but we can also up and download the data via Excel sheets, structured Excel sheets. The structure of the Excel sheets are predefined. The definition can be downloaded in the help section area of Rail Facility Portal. But if you do it via an Excel sheet, of course, this is manual work. And so we prefer to do it automatically. And that's the absolute new thing with the DB Netz AG, because from Monday on, we will have a daily exchange of information from DB Netz AG, from the APN interface at DB Netz AG to Rail Facility Portal. This is a web service interface transporting XML structures, technically speaking. Of course, we want to have it. We have the same thing for all other data providers. Generally as the roots of Rail Facility Portal are at the Direction Générale de Mobilité, the part of the European Commission. When RailNet Europe took over Rail Facility Portal, we had to agree that the usage of Rail Facility Portal is for free. But installing an interface for automatically up and download is something that we have also already some routines. But if someone is interested, he is really welcomed, and then we would simply program that. Is this answering sufficiently your question?
I can't see any hands or any new comments in the chat, so I think this answered totally the question. Are there any other questions to this two presentations? I can't see any, so therefore thank you very much for your presentation, and I think in the next session we will hear more about the Rail Facilities Portal. Then I think we are at the end of this meeting. I want to thank every presenter for his contribution for the presentation, and as I said up front, that he will receive every presentation later on, including the FAQs. I also thank Susanne Kopfer for always organizing these meetings in such a professional way. Thank you very much on that. And I want to just create awareness for the next meeting we will have on the 16th of May from 2 to 6 p.m. And there will be another information session from RNE and RFC, and I hope that we will join and that you will join us again and we'll see each other again. So thank you very much. Have a good day and stay healthy.